我哋爭取時間，有邊啲觀眾係想有特別嘅提問㗎？個提問可以係英文又得，可以中文又得。
咁我用中文問啦。
係。
其實我都好中意阿巴斯啲電影，因為我覺得佢電影就嗰個即係佢每一套電影都好簡單，即係唔同荷里活電影嗰啲，即係好 drama 咁樣。但係我即係睇咗好多出戲同係好睇嘅，但我唔明點解佢冇嗰種好勁嘅 drama， 就係靠 dialogue 呢樣嘢就可以維係到成套戲嘅感覺。即係嗰樣嘢係嗰個simplicity 咁樣係點樣
掌握到。OK。
係呢個真係我想知道你嘅。
عرض کنم که خیلی ممنون. من باید قبلا تشکر کنم از ایشون به عنوان دیستریبیوتر این فیلم. من که وقتی اومدم به اینجا هم باور نمی‌کردم که فیلم‌های من اینجا کسی ریسکو بکنه که فیلم منو بخره و نشون بده. دیستریبیوتر منه.
Okay, before everything else, I would like to thank you so much for distributing my movies and taking a huge risk.
و اینکه فکر نمی‌کردم که فیلمی به این سادگی به قول تو و فیلم دشواری هم ساده است هم دشوار این قابلیت پخش اینجا داشته باشه.
Well, I was thinking as a film as simple as this, or at the same time as pretty difficult. It's both simple and difficult. Somehow I thought that maybe it wouldn't deserve to be shown here.
من فیلمسازی رو با ساختن فیلم برای بچه‌ها شروع کردم.
I started making movies with children, basically using children in my movies.
و برای بچه‌ها.
And for the children.
بنابراین هیچ چاره‌ای نبود که با یه زبان ساده با اونها ارتباط برقرار کنم.
So I had to find a simple language in order to sort of be able to make movies with children.
در شروع کار بیشتر قصد ساختن فیلم‌های آموزشی بود.
From the beginning I was doing more educational movies.
بنابراین به خصوص در فیلم‌های آموزشی باید زبان ساده آموزشی رو رعایت می‌کرد.
So for that particular reason, for making educational movies, I really had to find a very simple language.
و طبیعتاً به هر موضوعی که انتخاب می‌کنیم پیچیدگی خودشو داره.
So and naturally, when we are choosing the subject itself has its complexity.
اشاره کردیم به فیلم‌های هالیوودی، خواستم بگم با شما هم دیدم.
When you were referring to the Hollywood movies, I do agree with you.
برای اینکه اون فیلم‌ها پیچیدگی تعمدی دارن، برای اینکه موضوع ندارن برای گفتن. پیچیدگی عمدی.
Okay, so they make a deliberate complication in Hollywood movies.
برای اینکه موضوعی برای گفتن نیست.
Because they don't have a very sort of true and deep subject. You know, they kind of make more of a superficial sort of complex matter of the Hollywood movies.
به هر حال فیلم‌های من با فیلم‌های بچه‌ها شروع شد.
Yeah, so again, back to what I started saying. So yeah, it's basically it originates from the fact that I worked from very early on with children and a simple language, working with children.
OK， 下一個問題。
去到後面，我哋見到少少 making of 咧，咁我哋見到成個山咧，跟住其實都係一片綠油油青色嘅，跟住但係譬如我哋睇戲嘅時候咧，跟住然之後就嗰座山咧就嗰啲草啊都係變咗做啡色啊，有一個唔同嘅感覺咧。咁佢想透過係咪做咗個 colour correction， 想透過呢個顏色轉變仲有啲乜嘢想表達嘅咧？
خب طبیعتاً همه فیلم‌ها یک کالر کارکشن خواهد داشت، این هم داشته، اما بخش آخر فیلم رو ما به شکل ویدیویی استفاده کردیم. مثلا کوالیتش رو دو جور گرفتیم. بخش اول 35 میلیمتری بود، بخش آخر بعد از مرگ یا زندگی آقای بدیعی ما اون رو چیز گرفتیم، با دوربین ویدیو گرفتیم.
این میگفتش که خودش میگفت که آخرش رو ویدیویی گرفتیم خواستیم بدونیم که منظورتون
منظورم بود که این بخش آخر جدا باشه از فیلم، یعنی بخش آخر رو میشه ندید، میشه دید. در واقع نمیخواستم اون بچسبه به فیلم، یه فاصله‌ای باشه بعد از اینکه فیلم تموم شد و ما اون بخش دوم رو به عنوان یه سندی برای زندگی به فیلم چسبوندیم.
In every movie, of course, there is deliberate coloration and you know how you compose the colors and the sort of you know how you plan the movie. There was a deliberate decision to separate the end of a movie from the final part, which basically you can choose to see it as a part of the movie or it can be separate. Somehow he wanted to make the end open for the audience to sort of look at it as part of it or separate, and as well as a sort of a document or an evidence for life after, whether he killed himself or not. He just wanted to leave that open.
Just want to ask, has the political climate or events of the last few years, how has that affected or informed the film industry in Iran, or more specifically, how has that affected Mr. Kiarostami himself in his work? Thank you.
به هر حال موقعیت سیاسی ایران رو همه چیز تاثیر گذاشته، تنها روی سینما نیست.
Well, the political situation in Iran has had its effect on every aspect, in every area of the country, not only on the film industry.
سینما یک بخشی از اونه.
The movie industry is only just a part of it.
شخصا اعتقاد دارم بعضی از محدودیت‌ها کمک کرده به اینکه ما فیلم‌های بهتری بسازیم واقعا.
Personally, I think the limitation or the restriction has somehow, in a way, it has affected that Mr. Kiarostami has managed to make even better movies.
و بعضی بخشاش هم خوب برای خیلی ها رو نابود کرده، از بین برده.
And of course, other aspects of it is that the situation has ruined the filmmaking and you know part of it has destroyed.
این واقعا مهمه که ما با مشکلات چجوری برخورد میکنیم.
What's important is how you tangle with the problems, how you face the problems, how you deal with them.
من یه دوست معمار دارم.
I have an architect friend.
اون میگه هر وقت من به یه زمین قناس برمیخورم، زمین کج و کوله.
He says every time I find a plot of land which is weird, which is kind of doesn't have a nice good shape.
وقتی میخوام مشکلاتش رو حل بکنم برای ساخت یک بنا، به یک معماری تازه میرسم که در زمین‌های قواره و خوب امکانش نیست.
He thinks that the challenge of trying to deal with this problem plot of land is always the challenge. It actually forces him to come up with a more of an innovative plan, innovative idea, and somehow challenges are making him become more innovative.
میگه من اون ساختمان‌هایی دوست دارم که پروبلماتیک بوده زمینش.
So his friend he enjoys the process of actually finding projects that are more problematic and more kind of it's got more complexity.
Okay.
想問關於新戲《東京出租少女》。
I want to have a question about your new film or recent film, Like Someone in Love.
咁第一就係好中意開頭就係個女仔嘅嫲嫲喺車站等佢，咁個女仔喺架的士度不停地兜圈，想望佢嫲嫲嗰段。我想問大師拍呢段戲嘅時候，係咪諗緊小津安二郎嘅《東京物語》？第二就係即係睇翻，即係以前喺即係大師喺伊朗拍嘅每出戲咧，都有啲好熱心幫人嘅伊朗人。但係睇最近喺法國同埋日本拍嘅兩出戲咧，都再見唔到呢種人，即係個感覺冰冷咗好多。你喺伊朗拍片嘅經驗同埋喺法國、日本拍片嘅經驗有啲咩唔同咧？你對唔同地方嘅人有咩睇法？即係唔該。
اجازه بدین من به این سوال آخرین سوال جواب بدم اگر هنوز کسی هست که راجع به تیست آف چری سوال داره.
May I keep the answer of this question to the last part of this Q&A, because in case there is another question more in relation to the taste of cherry.
با اینکه شما همین الان فیلم رو دیدین شاید بیشتر تو ذهنتون باشه و شاید کسایی باشن که فیلم لاکسام وانیلا رو ندیده باشن. Okay, because there is a risk that maybe there will be a lot of people in the audience that haven't seen the movie yet.
OK， 我哋一陣有時間先翻呢個問題。好，下一個。
It's very nice to see Mr. Kiarostami again. I really admire the way you use space in your films, in particular in Taste of Cherry, and it seems to me that it that you visualize a very philosophical concept. In particular, I'm thinking of the scene in the taxidermist classroom, for instance, when you shoot Mr. Body from inside the classroom, and I almost get a sense that Mr. Body wants to be the center of the universe, but the universe doesn't revolve around him. And I'm also thinking of the scene when he takes a picture of the couple, and the man is someone actually that we saw earlier in the film. And it just seems that the way you use space in the film is so unique, and it's such a philosophical way of using cinema. And I was wondering, maybe it was a very long process, but how did you arrive at this kind of vision of using cinema to deal with some very philosophical concepts? If maybe some philosophy influenced you or other filmmakers?
سوالی است که سوال خوبیه، بیشتر سوال نیست، بیشتر یه نوع نقد نظره.
So perhaps it's a good question that you are raising, but at the same time perhaps it's not very much of a question, it's more of your own view.
که البته خیلی این نوع نگاه رو من بهش تحسین میکنم و اگر تماشاگرای مثل شما توی سالن نبودن من جرأت ریسک یک همچون میزانسنایی نداشتم.
And it's fantastic that actually there are people like you in the audience that have that reflection. If there wasn't an audience like you, I wouldn't dare to actually put those qualities into my films.
به هر حال من خیلی فیلم ندیدم، یعنی روزایی که فیلم میدیدم زیاد جوان بودم هیچ فکر نمی‌کردم فیلم ساز بشم.
I actually haven't watched that many movies in my life, and when I was young, particularly, I didn't watch that many movies, and I didn't know that I'm going to become a film director.
یعنی نه فیلم خیلی میدیدم وقتی جوان بودم ولی نه به عنوان اینکه فیلم سازم.
Oh, okay. Sorry, no, of course. So he saw movies, but not with the consciousness of knowing that he's going to become a film director.
بنابراین سینما رو از طریق فیلم هایی که دیده بودم نیاموختم.
Okay, so
سینما رو از طریق فیلم نیاموختم و تحصیل سینمایی نکرده بودم.
Okay, so I didn't have like a traditional education in movie making.
بنابراین وقتی که توی طبیعت قرار میگیرم با موضوعی که خودم انتخاب کردم سعی میکنم که ایده رو از خود طبیعت بگیرم.
Okay. So when I'm in a landscape and I actually have my own ideas of how I want to sort of compose or construct this film, I just only trust my own understanding of that landscape, and I develop my own language of that.
آره یه پرسوناژ داریم، یک طبیعت داریم که همش خاکه، موضوعمون باز نزدیک به خاک شدن. طبیعتاً این نوع میزانسن رو میپذیره که شما در فیلم دیدید.
دوباره بگیم این خود مشکل
ساده‌تر بگم. بگین که وقتی که ما توی طبیعت میرم با موضوعی که انتخاب کردم، با پرسوناژی که قصد خودکشی داره و قرار خودش به خاک تبدیل بشه، طبیعتاً مقابل اون خاک و لندسکیپ اینا حضور بیشتری پیدا میکنه.
So when I have chosen the landscape, the subject matter, the person who is about to commit suicide, and all that sort of soil and the earth that is very much involved in the subject matter, and it's in the mind and it's presence, and you know you're surrounded by that. So you basically you use that, and you know you.
و از یه نظر دیگه ما انتخاب داریم یه چیزی رو ببینیم یه چیزی رو نبینیم.
And we always have a choice of you know choosing to look at something and choose not to look at other things.
صحنه تاکسی درمی طبیعتاً شاید برای تماشاگر جذاب باشه، تماشاگری به سینمای هالیوودی عادت داره.
The scene from the taxidermy that when he's looking at the classroom, it may be attractive to a certain group of people who are actually used to watch Hollywood movies.
برای که تنوع در سینمای هالیوود خیلی زیاده.
Because there's a lot of
تنوع یعنی دیدن‌های زیاد دیدن.
Exactly. So because those people who are watching Hollywood movies, maybe they have stimulated minds in terms of you know variety of scenes.
ولی در اون لحظه من دلم نمیخواست که لحظه غافل بشم از دیدن آقای بدیعی که التهاب داشت و من دلم می‌خواست که فقط به اون نگاه کنم و هیچ چیز دیگر نبینم.
So my deliberate choice of that particular scene was that I really didn't want to lose my view on the person of that Aghay Badi, and I didn't want to sort of waste it by showing the classroom. I actually wanted to show him more because he was so kind of he had this anxiety, and I wanted to sort of focus on that particular sort of anxiety of him.
به همین دلیل یه انتخاب کردم.
So it was my deliberate choice of actually bringing that scene the way it was.
I just want to know if you have any general thoughts and feelings about Hong Kong and Chinese cinema.
But I've only been in Hong Kong for 3 days, unfortunately. It's too few days for me to have a judgment.
بنابراین امیدوارم میتونم بگم شهر زیبایی دارین، مردم بسیار خونگرم.
I can say that it's a very beautiful city and nice, wonderful, warm people.
باید بگم که شهرم من از پنجره ماشین، از پنجره تاکسی نگاه میکنم.
I've seen most of the city through the window of the taxi and the cars.
ولی سینمای چین به هر حال سینمای متفاوت.
Well, the Chinese cinema is a very diverse cinema.
ما متاسفانه شانس اکران فیلم‌های چینی رو در ایران نداشتیم، نمایش فیلم‌های.
Unfortunately, we haven't had a chance to see that many Chinese movies in Iran.
اصلاً نداشتیم.
Oh, we have not had any.
یعنی توی اکران ما ندیدیم فیلم‌ها، ولی فیلم‌ها رو کپیشو به شکل ویدیو هست که بچه‌ها نگاه می‌کنن.
So but there are some black copies circulating around, and there are some, you know, among the youth you can occasionally can find a few.
من وقتی جوان بودم فیلم‌های هنگ کنگی رو، فیلم‌های اکشن هنگ کنگی رو بچه‌هام نگاه می‌کردن و خودشون از مدرسه مبادله فیلم داشتن، ویدیوشو می‌گرفتن می‌آوردن و ما تو خونه نگاه می‌کردیم.
When I was
ولی فیلم‌های اصیل شما رو فقط تو فستیوالا دیدم.
Okay. I've only watched the Chinese movie in the film festivals. Otherwise, when I, you know, earlier on, you know, there's a lot of earlier on he watched a lot of Hong Kong movies, and they were actually circulated at school. All these action movies from Hong Kong. So those ones.
خب طبیعتاً فیلم‌های چنکایگر رو یک سالی که داور بودم در کن دیدم.
So I've watched Chiang-Kai
فیلمی هست.
Movies from in a film festival in Cannes.
و همچنان فیلم‌های وون کاروای رو باز اونجا دیدم.
And Wong Kar-wai.
و توی فرانسه تو اکران. بله.
And in France.
وون کاروای.
Yeah, Wong Kar-wai movies in France.
و هر حال از حالا که دارم میرم میخوام چند تا فیلم اکران روزتون نمیشناسم، کارگردان جوانتون رو این شانس رو دارم که ببرم و نگاه کنم. اکران نمایش فیلمه. نگاه فیلم.
But now I'm definitely going to take with me several movies from the young filmmakers of Hong Kong. Definitely, I'm going to take it with me back home.
In all your movies, I feel in a kind of a suspended time connected with a landscape. like a philosophical, the philosophy of your film through the landscape and the suspended time looks like a bit what Tarkovsky is also doing in Bellatar. Do you have any acquaintance with them in some way, or have you been influenced by their works? Or?
شاید به دلیل اینی که من از طریق سینما به سینما من از طریق طبیعت رسیدم. من اینجا اگران هستم امروز به دلیل نمایشگاه عکسی که اینجا دارم، فوتوگرافی از طبیعت دارم. بنابراین نمیتونم آدم رو جدا کنم از طبیعت.
از طریق سینما به طبیعت رسیدیم؟
از طبیعت به سینما رسیدم.
Well, actually, my starting point was the landscapes. I sort of I started from landscape and then moved towards making cinemas. And the reason why I'm in Hong Kong is because I actually have an exhibition where I have a series of photography of landscape.
و حالا به دو کارگردانی هم که اشاره کردی، هم بلاتار هم تارکوفسکی، هر دو عکاسن، عکاس طبیعتن.
And both Bellatar and Tchaikovsky are photographers.
بنابراین همین دیگه، نمیتونم جدا کنم خودم رو از عکاسی و عکاسی رو از طبیعت.
And I can't separate myself from photography, and my photography can't separate itself from the landscape.
و طبیعتاً فکر کنم که آدمام در طبیعت خودشون رو بهتر بروز میدن، بیشتر طبیعی نچرال.
And I believe that people become more natural, become more themselves when they are in connection to the nature and the landscape.
OK， 好多謝大家今日嚟。就等一陣我哋完咗呢個工作希視之後咧，仲會有一個 seminar 嘅。咁可能同部分觀眾等陣再見面。好 ，thank you。俾導演嚟一嚟開先啦。